Welcome to World Transits Today. I'm Art Granoff. Connect with me at referenceastrology.com. And today, I'm going to show the world transits, some birth charts, and some personal transits in archetypal astrology. February 1, 2025. Here's our horoscope. And we notice right away, chart dominated by Mars on 6 planets and Pluto on 8 planets. That's a lot of Mars, a lot of force, and Pluto, a lot of fire and power getting together. And what happens when Mars and Pluto get together? Oh, there's some intensity, there's some sparks, there's a lot of force. Look at the world today. Also, Mars, strong will through time and inner work, can be initiated into a generous Mars, a giving Mars. And Pluto goes from being some type of monster in our life that compels us to do things, that dominates situations, that always wants their way, getting really big, initiated, transformed. Mars, Pluto, doing the toughest work. I'm going with that. And here's the horoscope a different way. You notice that we have on February 1st, the moon on the 4 outer planets. That's right. Moon with Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. Also, Venus on the 4 outer planets. And Mars on the 4 outer planets. So it's a big moon, Venus, Mars day with the 4 outer planets. Great day for a journey. And here's the Mars transits for February 2025. As just mentioned, Mars with the 4 outer planets. Now these transits run from October through May. Mars is retrograde, hanging out. It's a long transits. Mars trine Saturn. Mars is force, and Saturn could be the wall. So if you're forcing yourself towards the wall, you might get frustrated, right? Because the wall is restricting you. So you got that going on. We've got Mars with Uranus. Mars again, force, action, and Uranus, the new thing, BPM4. So one could say something you're excited about, charged up about, something that's new. Go ahead and do it. Mars, Uranus. Then we have Mars trine Neptune. Neptune BPM1, undifferentiated consciousness, with Mars, bold and strong. So one could say Mars with Neptune is moving towards wholeness. And then Mars, Pluto, once again, we just mentioned. Please welcome Richard Tarnas, PhD, who with Stan Grof started this archetypal astrology business. Here's a couple of his books, The Passion of the Western Mind, and his book, Cosmos and Psyche. You can catch Richard Tarnas speaking on a CIIS program, February 6th of this year. Look it up online and see what Professor Tarnas has to say. Now what we're going to do is look at Rick Tarnas's birth chart and compare that to the world transits on February 6th when he's going to be speaking. So we notice right away that Rick has a Sun and Uranus trine. Right there, Sun trine Uranus. Okay, the Sun being our identity, our forward motion in the world, and Uranus again, BPM 4, release from custody. What's new? The new thing, fresh air, illumination. We see on the world transits chart that on February 6th, also the sun is with Uranus. So in this case, Rick has a double dose of Sun Uranus. That's pretty good. We notice that with Neptune, the planet Neptune, that in Rick's chart, he's got the moon opposite Neptune right there. Moon opposite Neptune. The moon would be our sensitivity, our inner person. And with Neptune, the transcendent, usually referred to someone who's very open and giving, empathic. Shadow would be too much giving, over giving. Do we know somebody like that? Maybe. Then also in the world transits, we notice as well, it's moon with Neptune. And for the planet Pluto, we notice in Rick's chart, he's got the moon trine Pluto right there. Moon trine Pluto. Moon, again, our sensitivity. And Pluto, the planet of fire and power. So it could be a deep emotional catharsis, or it could be the moon and Pluto can be like the crybaby, the screaming baby. I don't have what I want. I want it now. And that kind of thing. Also, we notice in the world chart that moon with Pluto. Again, in Rick's chart, he's got Mercury opposite Pluto right there, Mercury opposite Pluto. And in the world chart, it's Mercury conjunct Pluto right there. Mercury is the mind, our thinking mechanism, our intellectual capacity, also how we communicate, teach, and learn. So usually Mercury with Pluto refers to digging under the surface, trying to find the prize, searching the one ripe pearl. Where is it? Got to keep going. Books, to speaking, teaching, learning, digging under the surface. Mercury, Pluto. And we see Mercury conjunct Pluto once again. And Rick has Jupiter opposite Pluto. Jupiter opposite Pluto. Jupiter expands or expands too much. And if Pluto is intensity, could be strong intensity with Pluto, over the line intensity, anger, anguish, domination. We don't want to do that. Perhaps in the initiated version, we find Jupiter expanding, transformation. And we notice too in the world chart, Jupiter trine Pluto. Also in Rick's chart, very interesting, in the midpoint chart, he's got a Neptune and Pluto conjunction with a Saturn midpoint. And that looks like this right there. See Neptune at 17, Pluto at 16, and right in the middle, Saturn, 15, doing the toughest work. And here's Rick Tarnas's transits. We notice Rick's Uranus transits. We have Uranus square Jupiter, right there, Uranus square Jupiter. Big breakthroughs. Jupiter big, Uranus breakthroughs. Also, Uranus square Pluto. Uranus square Pluto, like the 60s. Freedom with intensity. We've got Neptune with Venus right there. Neptune, sextile with Venus. Neptune again, the transcendent. Venus, beauty, love, the human heart. Sounds like a good combo. Also, you notice in the sky, in the world transit, we have Venus and Neptune conjunction. So Rick's got that twice right now, double dose. We've got Neptune opposite Saturn right there. Neptune opposite Saturn. Saturn with Neptune in the sky. Ideal versus the real. Also, Neptune can be delusion. So if you're deluded and you're stuck with Saturn, that can be tough. And Neptune square Uranus. Neptune in a square to Uranus. Again, Neptune, BPM1, undifferentiated consciousness, mystical union, the transcendent. With Uranus, BPM4, breaking through. Perhaps Rick is breaking through right now. And for Pluto, Pluto conjunct Venus right there. Pluto conjunct Venus. Venus, the heart, and Pluto, transformation. Thank you, Rick Tarnas. Please welcome Garth Hudson. You know him, right? Member of the band right there. Picture about 1970. There he is, young Garth Hudson. Now, the band was popular in the late 60s, early 70s. In fact, they cut their teeth with Bob Dylan as his backup band when he first went electric. So, that. And there's Garth Hudson at work there, like in the 70s sometimes, still has dark hair. And there's a couple of shots of him fairly recently. Got his white beard, playing the organ and playing the accordion. To really get a taste for the band and Garth Hudson, I'm going to recommend a movie called The Last Waltz, which was a concert film from 1976. So if you want to really get into the 60s, what was really happening in the early and the mid 70s, watch The Last Waltz. And here's his chart, Garth Hudson, which is pretty fascinating. I'm going to point to a few items here. One, he's got two grand trines upside down, somewhat similar to the so-called Star of David. Watch this. He's got a Jupiter, Uranus, and Neptune grand trine. It says right here, Jupiter, Uranus, expansion, successful steps forward. We have Jupiter trine Neptune, a big breakthroughs into the numinous, and Uranus trine Neptune, the unexpected Promethean opening to the Apollonian or universal consciousness. In addition to that, he's got the Mars, he's got a Saturn, Mars, Pluto grand trine, which is action consciousness. Check it out. Mars trine to Saturn, his drive and musical training built through time. We've got Mars trine Pluto, the warrior energies transformed to powerful music performance. And Saturn trine Pluto, focused regeneration through musical structure. Garth Hudson. And also, here's a few statements about Garth Hudson. I'll read them. Some people want to know how a watch works, said Robbie Robertson, guitarist. And other people just want to know what time it is. Hudson was emphatically the former. Time, in its 1970 cover story on the band, called him, beyond question, the most brilliant organist in the rock world. A predictable surprise, like a cuckoo from a cuckoo clock. Time magazine. And, you get up in the morning and you go to work, like driving a truck or getting booed on stage. Just another day. Garth Hudson. Thank you again, Garth Hudson. February 12th, it's the full moon, sun, opposite moon. The way I like to think of the full moon is as follows. Since before time began, people looked at the sky And I guess they noticed every 29, 30 days or so, we had this big ball up in the sky, illuminating the night sky, the full moon. And we're watching it now, and people after us will be watching it. So if you really want to tune in to all humans from all times, past, present, and future, on the 12th of this month, go outside and see the moon. Join the party. We've got some inner planet transits, of course, this month with the sun trine with Jupiter. Jupiter expands, and the sun is our individuality. So that's a good time to expand. Yet Jupiter, you have to watch out, because if you expand too much, it's what's known as hubris or inflation, and then you're just the greatest. We may know some people like that who believe that about themselves. Also, the sun squared Uranus, BPM 4, freedom, release from custody. Wow. Sun Uranus. And right at the beginning of the month, till about the 9th or 10th, it's a Sun, Jupiter, Uranus. 3 of them together. Really good time to break through. And later in the month, once again, Sun with Jupiter. If we add the planet Mercury, whoa, look what's happening now. We see, beginning of the month, it's Mercury, the mind and communicator, learning, teaching, reading, writing, with Jupiter expanding that, providing grace, making it wonderful. Or it could be too much. We've got Mercury with Uranus, okay? The aha moment when you get it, right? So if we look and see, with the sun, it's the sun Mercury, sun Jupiter, and sun Uranus, with Mercury Jupiter and Mercury Uranus. Boy, what that tells me is that the first half of the month is really fantastic for diving into something, some material, something you're reading or writing or something you're creating. Sun Uranus. And with Mercury, it's a great time to pay attention and accomplish something, do something with your mind expanded, ready for breakthroughs. And we notice the second half of the month, not too bad either, with Mercury Jupiter, Mercury Saturn, and Sun on Jupiter again. So it's Sun, Jupiter, Saturn. Use your mind, your individuality, and put something down, Saturn. Back to Mars, once again, before Mars transits I mentioned earlier through February. And now we're going to talk about outer planet transits. Uranus trine Pluto. Uranus, BPM 4, the death, rebirth experience, release from custody, with BPM 3, intensity, struggle, getting out of there. So, freedom with intensity for 10 years. We can see that previously in the 1960s, 1960 to 1972, we had the Uranus conjunct Pluto, freedom with intensity, commonly known as the 60s. See right here, I made this timeline map in the 1960s, okay? 1964, the Beatles arrived. Remember that? If you were around. And we had something called the Vietnam War, Gulf of Tonkin incident. Sounds somewhat like Tonglen, the Buddhist practice. Vietnam War. Then 1967, Stan Grof moves to the United States for LSD research. And the Beatles, Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Heart Club Band is released. That was a big deal for me. I was 14, just starting to smoke pot. Then 1969, we had the moon landing in June 99. And just after that, we had Woodstock, the Woodstock Festival in August 1969. And if we look today with Uranus trine Pluto, well, here's some stuff that's going on. Similar, would you think? Just the other day, DeepSeek AI, the new disruptive technology that smashed the stock market with something new. We have Trump regains the presidency. We have the US Pluto return, Pluto on top of Pluto. We got the Russia-Ukraine war, the Middle East war, and the Trump US revolution. February 9th, 1964, the Beatles' first US performance on Ed Sullivan. What were you doing that night? Well, I was 10 years old, glued to the television set because it was supposed to be the biggest event that ever happened on the earth. And for many, it was. Yeah, they are the Beatles in their nicely tailored suits, all cleaned up and beautiful. On Ed Sullivan, we do see guitar chords, but we don't see amplifiers. What does that mean? Anyway, on February 9th, 1964, we had Uranus and Pluto in conjunction right there. Trine with the moon, sensitivity, our inner person. Everyone's screaming, the Beatles! And all the girls were screaming too. All righty. We had Uranus and Pluto, sextile to Neptune, the three outer planets party all together. Big deal. New stuff happening. We also have the moon with Jupiter and the moon with Venus. Big open heart time. And also we have Saturn square Neptune, just like now, Saturn, Neptune in the sky. Ideal versus the real. Are these guys for real, or are they just flash in the pan? I guess time will tell. Thank you, Beatles, 60 years ago. Also, we had Woodstock Music Festival, 3 days of peace and music. August 1969. And there's the stage right there. Let's look at the chart. We have Uranus and Pluto conjunction with the moon for sensitivity in there. And also Uranus-Jupiter conjunction, big breakthroughs. Okay. We have the sun square to Neptune, identifying with imagination, dissolved consciousness. I guess, what was the saying? Don't eat the brown acid. Now we would say, don't eat the brown ant acid. Something like that. We have Mercury with Saturn and Venus. Mercury, the mind, Saturn, form, and Venus, the heart. Heart opening big at Woodstock. Uranus, Pluto conjunction. The first moon landing, which was July 21, 1969. Okay. And we see here, that's the ship they came on, right? It looks kind of like compared to now, some kind of old jalopy. But I guess it worked. It got them all the way to the moon. And that's one of the guys, maybe Neil Armstrong right there. I guess he had to jump. He didn't have a ladder or anything. All righty. And so during that time, We had Jupiter, Uranus, big breakthroughs. I mean, that's pretty big. Leaving Earth and landing on the moon, that's a breakthrough. And Uranus, Pluto in there too, both of them together with Jupiter, triple conjunction. In fact, Uranus and Jupiter are exact at 0. That was a huge day right there. We have also the Sun, Mercury, and Saturn together. It took a lot of brain power and a lot of effort to get those guys to the moon. And also the moon trined with Venus, a love, a lot of heart, and Mars with Neptune, moving towards wholeness. Here's Neil Armstrong, first man to walk on the moon. Hey, there he is, all constricted in his spacesuit. But look what happened after his walk. Look at that face. There's a guy who's just been transformed right there. Look at that face. Look at those eyes. Remind you of anything? Man, thinking, I just walked on the moon. Hey, full transformation. Here's his chart. We notice Uranus in a square with Jupiter, huge breakthroughs, big breakthroughs. And Uranus square with Pluto, freedom with intensity. I mean, wow. Also, he's got Saturn square Uranus, old versus the new. I mean, what a day. Neil Armstrong walks on the moon. Hey, and there's his chart. Thank you, Neil Armstrong. Saturn conjunct Neptune for 3 years. Saturn's real and Neptune's what's ideal. Saturn's the bottom line and Neptune's the transcendent. Saturn's strength and Neptune could be delusion. All kinds of combinations of those. Practical and transpersonal, building from dreams. One could construct a big delusion. I've done that many times. How about you? Saturn, Neptune, fashioning what's ideal here. Is that our work? And if you're going to do a journey or Grof breathwork on February the 1st, here's the moon transits. And let's just say right away, when the moon is on 4 outer planets, that's a good day to take a journey. For instance, got the moon with Uranus, okay? Our sensitivity with Uranus, BPM4, freedom, release. The moon with Neptune, BPM1, mystical consciousness. And the moon with Pluto, depth and intensity. You're going to do some breath work or take a journey on February 1st. It's a great day. February 27th, the new moon, sun conjunct moon. Just like the full moon happens every month, and it's gone on since time began, even though you can't see it. And that's it. World transits today, February 2025, running down the world, a couple of birth charts, and some transits. I'm Art Granoff. Thanks for joining.